Can I just say before you review One Night, the fact that it's on Paramount is another. It's one of those. So we interviewed it because it's a good series, and Jodie is always very interesting. There are so many streaming services now asking for your extra, amount of a month.
Yes,
that you and Paramount are very kind of new to the party. And people might be thinking, I already subscribe to X, Y, and Z, so maybe I'm not going to go out to Paramount, which means that inevitably these kind of shows are going to be seen by fewer people than if they were on, as a new series on ITV or BBC Two. So I guess what a lot of people they're going to be interested in what you have to say about it, but they're going to try and work out, is it worth me subscribing to get this show? Okay,
so to sort of just slightly repeat some of the stuff that was said in that interview. So this is a 6-part series created by Emily Ballou, directed by Catherine Miller and Lisa Matthews. 3 women, 2 time frames, many stories. In their youth, this trio, Tess, Simone, Mon, and Hat, were inseparable. Tess was sexually assaulted, so she's a rape survivor, moved away, as did Simone. Now, Tess is back with her wife and kids to spend a year in Sydney. Simone has returned to care for her ailing father, and she's written a book, a Romana Clef, a true story, mildly fictionalized, telling the story of that one night. But is it her story to tell? She publishes the book anonymously, but a local journalist joins the dots and follows the dots to Tess's door. So there becomes this whole thing about the story has been told, it's out there, and people are now figuring it out. Meanwhile, Hat is worried about her own culpability in a sort of an old drug dealing ring case that's tied up with the original case. So let's start with the negatives. To say that the mechanics of the plot are contrived is to put it lightly. I mean, it is very plot heavy in terms of its coincidences, its intrigues and the way that they intertwine. There is something which is pure melodrama about the way that the bits of the story kind of, neatly tied together. But the performances are across the board terrific and have a real ring of truth about them, not least Jodie Whittaker. As does the central theme of blanking out trauma, of shutting the door on the past rather than facing it, of people being confined to silence as opposed to being able to discuss something. Also, I think that ultimately for all the mechanics of the plot, what the film is about is it's about friendship. It's about ownership of stories, ownership of your own story, the acceptance that your own story is not just your own. The way in which, as Jodie Whittaker said in that interview, you can love and hate people at the same time. There is a really terrific performance by Yael Stoner's Hat, who I thought was great. Nicole Silver does a really good job of encapsulating Simone's conflict about having written this thing and then suddenly wishing that she hadn't, but knowing that she had, and then the position that it puts her in. But I think that none of this would work if you didn't buy the central performance by Jodie Whittaker, because her character basically goes back into an environment that she has walked away from because of this terrible thing in the past, and then has to negotiate this really complicated position, because on the one hand being very sort of forceful and very, front foot, but on the other hand still being related to the earlier version of herself who is trapped in this kind of this awful event. So it's not in the same league for me as Unbelievable, but then it's not the same kind of story. This is, in the end, it is a melodrama in as much as it is it has the kind of mechanics of the plot and the contrivance. And some people may find that some of the subplots, some of the outer ring plots are not quite as engaging as the central theme. But at the central heart of it, this idea about a traumatic, forgotten, silenced event that brings together 3 people who were as close as anything and have been thrown to the 4 winds by this and are now forced to come back and confront it is really powerful. And the last episode, at the time that we did that interview, we'd only seen 3. I've now seen all 6. The last episode is very good. And the last episode, there is a shot in the last episode in which Jodie Whittaker doesn't say anything, but she's listening to something. And the camera is, you don't hear what she's listening to. You just watch her listen to something. And it is absolutely brilliant. So I think it's, after having maybe had some reservations around 4 or 5, episode 6 has got a very, very good, closure to it. So I would say it is definitely worth seeing because I think the performances are great. There is a really interesting idea at the centre of it. There is some overworked plot mechanics, but I can live with them because the characters kept it grounded.
Should I consider subscribing to Paramount Plus because of it?
I think it's a good argument.
Right.
I mean, it's if you can't see it anywhere else, I think it's worth it. Yeah, I think so.
Thanks very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as we enjoyed making it. While you're here, check out all the other videos because they're cool too, aren't they?
Yeah, and if you want to keep up to date with everything Kermode and Mayo's take, then check out our social channels.
I mean, why wouldn't you?
I mean, I would. I have done.
Excellent.